There comes a moment in every life when the road ahead looks too steep, the burden too heavy, and the promise too distant to believe in. Yet it is in these very moments, when the odds tower above you and the path seems impossible, that a quiet voice within invites you to rise, not by your strength alone, but by trusting the one who shaped the mountains you're afraid to climb. When you dare to believe that God can do what you cannot, something powerful awakens in your spirit. A new vision, a renewed courage, a certainty that the impossible is not a wall but a doorway. You were never meant to measure your future by your limitations. You were meant to measure it by God's limitless ability to turn darkness into direction and obstacles into opportunities. Every challenge you face right now is not a signal to surrender. It is a signal that your breakthrough is near. The pressure you feel is evidence of a promise preparing to unfold. So lift your eyes, refuse the whispers of fear, stand with the boldness of someone who knows that life shifts in favor of the one who believes, even when nothing around them seems to change. Your breakthrough is closer than you think, and the impossible is merely the next chapter God is about to rewrite for your victory. There comes a moment in every person's life when they stand at the edge of what appears to be impossible. A moment when logic fails, evidence disappears, and the path ahead is clouded by doubt, discouragement, and uncertainty. It is in that moment, when your hands feel empty and your hope feels thin, that faith becomes more than a belief. It becomes a force, a living, breathing power capable of moving what the world calls unmovable. But this kind of faith does not come from casual wishing or shallow optimism. It comes from a deep, unwavering trust in the one who sees beyond your limitations, beyond your fears, and beyond the obstacles that rise before you. When you trust God with the impossible, you tap into a source of strength that does not weaken, a reservoir of possibility that does not run dry. Most people look at the circumstances around them and decide what is possible based on what their eyes can see. They measure their future by their current resources, or their past failures, or the opinions of others. But faith works in the opposite direction. Faith begins where sight ends. Faith speaks possibility into places where there seems to be none. Faith whispers, keep going,
when every sign tells you to stop.
And when you trust God with the impossible, something remarkable begins to happen inside you. Your imagination expands. Your fears shrink. Your mind becomes attuned to hints, nudges, ideas, and opportunities that were invisible before. You begin to sense that the impossible is not a wall, but a doorway, one that opens only when you decide to believe that it can. Trusting God with the impossible is not simply about asking for miracles. It is about aligning your inner world with a higher order, a deeper truth. It is about recognizing that every impossible situation is a stage upon which divine power reveals itself in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. And strangely enough, the breakthrough rarely begins with external change. It begins with internal surrender. You stop gripping for control. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make things happen in your own strength. Instead, you turn your focus inward and upward, and in that stillness, something shifts. Peace enters. Clarity rises. Strength takes root. You stop trying to push the mountain and start trusting the one who created it. People often think that. Trusting God means passively waiting for something to happen, but the opposite is true. Trust is active. Trust sharpens your vision. Trust strengthens your persistence. Trust turns your heart into fertile soil where ideas grow, where courage grows, where resilience grows. When you believe that the impossible is possible, you stop entertaining small thinking. You stop feeding doubt. You stop rehearsing what could go wrong and start nurturing what could go right. You find yourself taking bold steps that felt too frightening before. You use your voice when you once stayed silent. You pursue opportunities that once intimidated you. You reach for dreams that once felt out of reach, simply because now you know you are not reaching alone. And here is the truth many people overlook. The impossible is not designed to break you. It is designed to build you. Every challenge that seems insurmountable forces you to grow in ways comfort never could. It demands that you stretch your faith, sharpen your discipline, deepen your endurance, and elevate your thinking. You begin to understand that the impossible is not the enemy. It is the invitation. It invites you to rise. It invites you to trust. It invites you to become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were before. And when you accept that invitation, you discover that God was never asking you to conquer the impossible by yourself. He was asking you to trust him enough to let him lead you through it. When you walk with that kind of trust, you stop being intimidated by the size of the mountain before you. You stop believing that delays are denials. You stop confusing silence with abandonment. Instead, you understand that divine timing is precise, purposeful, and perfect. You begin to see the invisible threads being woven behind the scenes. You start to sense that something is shifting, something is aligning, something is preparing, even when everything on the surface looks unchanged. And that awareness becomes the quiet confidence that carries you forward, step by step, through uncertainty, through obstacles, and through fear. The power of unwavering faith does not simply open doors. It transforms you into the kind of person who can walk through them. And this is the miracle hidden inside every impossible situation. While you are waiting for the breakthrough is being built within you. And as internal transformation occurs, the external one follows. Always, faith is not passive. It is a deliberate decision to believe in outcomes unseen but divinely promised. It is one of the most powerful forces a human being can cultivate, not because it magically erases challenges, but because it reshapes the very mind that confronts them. Faith, in its truest form, is an inner command, a conscious choice to trust what your eyes cannot yet confirm, to stand firm when everything around you seems to contradict the very thing you are hoping for. It is not the weak man's escape, nor is it a blind leap into nothingness. It is a disciplined act of the spirit, a mental stance that refuses to surrender even when circumstances whisper that surrender is the only reasonable option. People often misunderstand faith as something that simply happens, chosen in moments of desperation, as if it rises automatically when life becomes too heavy. But real faith does not grow from accident or emotion. It grows from intention, from the daily decision to place your confidence in what God has declared rather than what the world displays. When you choose that kind of faith, you are not escaping reality. You are rising above it. To believe in something unseen requires strength, but to believe in something divinely promised requires alignment. It requires tuning your mind away from the noise of doubt and aligning it with a higher frequency, one that carries the certainty of divine order. This kind of belief forces you to discipline your thoughts, because the mind is always attempting to wander back into fear, back into limitation, back into the comfortable territory of what if it doesn't work. Faith, however, teaches the mind to ask a different question. What if it does? You begin to see possibilities rather than obstacles, answers rather than delays, pathways rather than dead ends. You start understanding that the invisible realm of promise is more real, more reliable, and more powerful than the visible circumstances pressing against you. There will always be moments when faith feels unnatural. This is because human beings are conditioned to trust what they can see, touch, and measure. But faith requires you to trust what you can sense only through spiritual conviction. It may feel like walking through a fog with only a single step illuminated at a time, yet even that one illuminated step becomes enough when you trust the one who lights it. And as you continue making the choice to walk, you find that new steps reveal themselves exactly when needed, not a moment earlier, not a moment later. This is the mystery and beauty of faith. It demands a decision before it delivers clarity. Many people pray for breakthroughs while simultaneously holding on to doubts strong enough to cancel out the very things they are asking for. This is because they expect faith to be a feeling instead of a discipline. But feelings fluctuate. Faith must not. Faith is a decision you recommit to daily, even hourly, especially in moments when nothing seems to be changing. The decision itself becomes the seed that attracts divine intervention. When you stand firm in belief, you position yourself to receive the extraordinary. Faith pulls the eye, invisible into the visible, not because you deserve it by effort alone, but because trust opens the spiritual channels through which God operates. It creates a space inside you where miracles can land. Sometimes the delay you feel is not a denial, but a divine test of your decision. Will you believe only when you see progress, or will you believe because the promise is real? Will you stand only when circumstances make it easy, or will you stand when everything appears to be falling apart? Faith demands that you choose trust even when the process confuses you. It demands that you trust in seasons where you cannot yet comprehend the purpose, and in doing so, faith transforms you. It strengthens your character, it sharpens your vision, and matures your spirit far beyond what comfort ever could. Understand this clearly. Faith is power. It activates resources you did not know existed. It draws answers from directions you never thought to look. It invites a strength into your life that cannot be explained by human logic. When you decide, truly decide, to believe in what God has promised, you step into a realm where impossibilities begin to lose their authority. You begin walking as one who expects breakthrough, not as someone begging for it. And that shift in posture alone is enough to open doors that once seemed permanently sealed. Faith is not passive. It is a deliberate decision, a courageous posture of the soul. And when you choose it fully, the impossible begins to move in your favor. There comes a moment in every individual's life when they stand at the crossroads of limitation and possibility. One road is paved with every doubt, fear, and worry the world has ever taught them. The other road leads toward the unknown, toward the territory where only faith can guide the steps. At first glance, this second road appears difficult, uncomfortable, and even unreasonable. Yet it is the only road on which true transformation ever occurs. It is the path where the impossible begins to shift, where obstacles begin to loosen, and where doors begin to open that logic alone could never unlock. And the striking truth is this: the difference between the person who remains stuck and the person who rises is not intelligence, talent, or background. It is the quiet but unwavering decision to align their belief with God's power instead of their own limitations. Human beings often fall into the trap of thinking they must carry the full burden of their lives on their own shoulders. They believe progress depends solely on their strength, their strategy, and their resources. When challenges mount, they assume lack of ability means lack of possibility. But this mindset is the very thing that blinds them to divine intervention. A person cannot recognize what God is capable of if they remain fixated on what they are incapable of. The moment you shift your focus, truly shift it, from your weakness to God's limitless capacity, a new current begins to move through your life. You stop seeing the mountain as something meant to crush you and begin to see it as something meant to show you what faith can move. Every impossibility carries within it the seed of breakthrough, but the seed cannot grow in the soil of doubt. It grows where belief aligns with higher power, where trust expands beyond personal understanding. This alignment is not an event. It is a posture, a state of mind, a daily decision. It is the choice to say, I will not measure my future by what I see right now. I will measure it by what God can do through me. When this becomes the inner dialogue, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. Fear loses its authority. Worry loses its grip. Even setbacks take on a different meaning, not as endings, but as divine recalibrations designed to position you more precisely on your path. When you begin to align your belief with God's power, you notice that life responds differently to you. Ideas you never considered surface in your mind with clarity. People show up in your path who seem sent at exactly the right time. Opportunities that looked impossible begin to unfold with surprising ease. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. Possibility always existed, but until belief harmonized with divine direction, you could not perceive it. Faith sharpens the vision of the mind, and it expands the borders of what you are willing to expect. You can become aware of answers that were invisible when you were focused only on problems. There will always be moments when the impossible feels too heavy, too large, too overwhelming. This is natural. But these moments are precisely when the shift matters most, when you remind yourself that God is not limited by natural laws, human logic, or your past experiences. You free yourself from the prison of small thinking. God's power is not activated by perfect circumstances. It is activated by honest belief. You do not need to have everything figured out. You simply need to trust that He does. The limitation does not lie in the situation. It lies in the belief that the situation cannot change. Once belief expands, the boundaries of the possible expand with it. A person aligned with divine power becomes a force that circumstances cannot easily defeat. They walk differently, speak differently, think differently. They carry an inner assurance that defies external chaos. While others shrink in uncertainty, they rise in expectation. They understand that impossibility is not a barrier. It is an invitation. an invitation to witness what human effort alone can never accomplish. When you operate from this inner alignment, you will notice that the weight of your challenges begins to shift. Instead of feeling crushed beneath them, you begin to feel carried through them. Strength shows up where you thought you had none. Courage emerges in moments where fear once dominated. Peace settles into your heart, even when the situation itself has not yet changed. Is the quiet miracle of aligning belief with God's power. You become more than the sum of your abilities. You become a vessel through which the extraordinary can flow. And once you experience this alignment even once, you will never again look at the impossible the same way, because you will know, not hope, but know, that impossibility is simply the stage God uses to reveal what faith makes possible. The mind is one of the most powerful instruments at our disposal, yet it often becomes the very source of our limitations when it is swayed by doubt, fear, or impatience. We underestimate the extraordinary potential that lies within our thoughts, our beliefs, and the way we align them with higher purpose. When a mind is aligned with unwavering belief in God's timing and power, it transforms from a fragile observer of circumstances into an unstoppable force capable of overcoming challenges that once seemed insurmountable. This alignment is not accidental, nor is it a casual hope that things will turn out favorably. It is a deliberate, disciplined choice to place every thought, every plan, and every action under the guidance of a wisdom far greater than our own. The first step in achieving this alignment is the conscious recognition that God's timing is perfect. Human beings are conditioned to measure success by immediate results, by visible evidence, and by the satisfaction of personal expectation. Yet, true progress often requires a patience that transcends the limitations of our own understanding. The mind that trusts in divine timing learns to wait without frustration, to act without anxiety, and to persist without faltering, even when circumstances appear stagnant. This patience does not imply passivity. It is a dynamic state in which the mind is fully engaged, seeking solutions, preparing for opportunities, and maintaining focus, all while resting in the assurance that the proper moment will reveal itself in accordance with a higher plan. Belief in God's power complements this trust in timing by reinforcing the mind's capacity to act boldly. When we acknowledge that we are supported by a power beyond our own, we no longer rely solely on human strength or intellect to navigate challenges. The mind becomes infused with courage and creativity, seeing possibilities where others perceive impossibility. Every obstacle is no longer a threat, but an invitation to experience growth, to discover hidden resources, and to witness outcomes that could not have been generated by human effort alone. The combination of patience and belief creates a mental clarity that enables decisive action, a clarity that filters out distraction and fear, leaving only the conviction necessary to pursue what is rightfully within reach. The unstoppable mind also cultivates resilience, a quality that is often tested in the presence of adversity. Challenges, setbacks, and disappointments are inevitable in life, but the mind aligned with unwavering faith understands that these are not signs of failure, but elements of a process designed to refine, strengthen, and prepare for breakthrough. Resilience is not merely enduring, it is actively converting difficulty into opportunity, recalibrating strategies when necessary, and maintaining focus on ultimate objectives despite temporary setbacks. Each moment of resistance faced with faith strengthens the mind's resolve, making it increasingly capable of navigating the unexpected with wisdom, patience, and unshakable confidence. Furthermore, this alignment transforms the very nature of perception. The MIND begins to see the unseen patterns and opportunities that others overlook. It recognizes connections, senses timing, and anticipates outcomes in ways that appear almost miraculous. Decisions are no longer reactive, but intuitive and strategic, guided by a combination of wisdom, preparation, and divine insight. Actions flow naturally from thought, and success becomes not the result of luck, but the natural consequence of consistent, aligned mental effort combined with trust in God's guidance. The person who trains their mind in this manner experiences a sense of calm determination, a clarity that eliminates indecision, and an unstoppable momentum that propels them toward goals once deemed unreachable. Finally, the mind aligned with unwavering belief does not operate in isolation. It attracts the circumstances, resources, and people necessary to facilitate progress. Opportunities that once seemed improbable become accessible, ideas gain traction, and paths that appeared blocked open unexpectedly. The energy of faith radiates outward, influencing not only personal effort, but also the environment in which it operates. It is a force that defies limitation, and it grows stronger with practice, patience, and persistent focus.